Hello, friends. I am so excited to be here with you today as a part of this new developers orientation. Again, I am bummed out that we can't be together in person, but hey, we are still navigating this COVID crisis, and so this is where we are. So let's just still jump into our conversation today. I'm excited that Benner has invited me to be a part of the conversation to talk about best practices in working with local churches and finding ways to create new opportunities for mission and ministry in your ministry context. Again, I'm Reverend Candace Lewis. I currently serve as a Gulf Central District Superintendent in the Florida Annual Conference, where I superintend 89 churches across 4 counties. And I also serve in a dual capacity as a resource person to church planters in our annual conference, i.e., conference developer. So let's just jump into our conversation. Again, we're going to be talking about best practices in working with local churches and finding ways to create new opportunities for your mission and ministry context. And I wanted to start the conversation off by offering two scriptures that will kind of root what I'm going to be sharing or ground what I'm going to be sharing with you briefly today. First scripture comes from Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 through 8, and then we're going to look at verses 9 through 10. Again, very familiar passage to you. Let's read it from the New International Version. It says, "The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord," Jeremiah said, "I don't know how to speak. I'm too young." But he said to him, "Don't say I'm too young. You must go to everyone I send to you, and you must say whatever I command you to say. Don't be afraid of them, for I am with you. I will rescue you, declares the Lord." And so, again, I think that scripture text applies to new developers. You may not be young in age, some may be young in age, but you may be young in this ministry capacity. But you have to know that this role, I think, will invite you to be a prophetic voice of sorts. And a prophet is one that sees what God is getting ready to do into the future at times. And you're going to have to speak about that and talk about that. Our denomination is filled with wonderful, amazing churches, and many of them are over 100+ years old. And the role that you're in as a conference developer, you're going to be speaking forth those things that God is getting ready to do. And so I just want you to be encouraged that God has called you to this. And again, you may not feel prepared, but God says, "Speak, for I am with you. Don't be afraid." The next scripture gets exciting even the more. So then the Lord reached out his hand and he touched Jeremiah and he says, "I've put my words into your mouth and I've appointed you over nations or conferences, and I want you to uproot, tear down, destroy, overthrow, plant, and build." Uproot, tear down, destroy, overthrow, plant, and build. And again, there are just some things that are happening in our context and in a context that you may be called to help create a new vision for. Some things that are existing may need to be uprooted. They may need to be torn down in some cases. But understand, your work is not one dimensional. Your work is also that work which is going to help plant and build new things. And so I just want to encourage you as you step into this new role to make sure you have a balance. There are some things you're going to uproot, but there's some new things you're going to plant and build. So you be encouraged in this new appointment. Second scripture comes from 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse number 32, just one verse. And I'm reading it from the Common English Bible. And it simply says, "From Issachar, those are those are the ones who understood the times and they knew what Israel ought to do." And in this particular context, there were 200 chiefs with all of their relatives under their command. And again, the role that you're in as a new church developer, staff person, is a person that should be able to understand the times. And we're trusting that God's going to give you wisdom and insight, and you're going to grow in your ability to know which way the conference ought to go as it relates to planning new churches. And so again, thank you for being a part of this developers conversation. And we hope that you learn a lot and know that you're not in this alone. There are partners all across the connection that are going to journey with you as you get started in this new ministry. So I just wanted to start my, again, brief conversation with you with those two scriptures. So to do specifically what Benner has invited me to do, Let me share with you 5 things that I think new developers should consider. The first thing is to understand your demographics, your ministry context, your mission field. I'm encouraging you to meet all of the planters, your DSs, your partner churches, etc., in your first 90 days. And again, you may not be able to get it done in the first 90 days because of the season that we're in, but the point is that uh, soon after this appointment, we're going to expect you to become like the expert in the mission field. Not that you have to know everything, but you want to make sure you've gone out into the mission field. You've done the demographics, you drove around the context, you really understand the mission field. You understand what currently exists, as well as you begin to understand what could be in this ministry context. Talk to the planners, get to know the planners, talk to the DSs, hear their vision, talk to the conference staff people, make sure you talk to the bishop. So that way you understand the larger vision that you're going to be helping to implement, as well as you have a sense of the context and you have a sense of the new ideas that you can bring to this opportunity. Second thing I want you to consider is to, again, connect with developers that are within the UMC church as well as developers that are outside of the UMC church. Again, that's why Path One's brought us together. Path One is an amazing resource. We also connected with a group of developers that meet with Lifeway. Ed Stetzer meets with a group of developers. It's a cross denominational group, and that group we found to be very, very helpful. As well, Exponential has learning communities. Fresh Expression has learning communities. So there are lots of different learning communities. So I would encourage you as a new developer to connect within the denomination as well as connect outside of denomination. Number 3, funds are limited. So be creative. I mean, and that's all I can say. There was a time when church planting was a lot of parachute drops, but those times are long gone. I was actually a church planter. I started a church back in Jacksonville, Florida in 1996, and I described that as the time that dinosaurs roamed the earth. So again, it was a long time ago. Lots have changed in church planting, but one of the things that I have seen across the connection is that the money is shrinking. Uh, so you want to not only be a good steward of the resources, but you want to be creative and find ways that you can help plant new churches and plant new ministries that are not only going to be self-supporting, but some of them can also be income producing. So again, be creative in funding. Fourth, I want to encourage you to embrace humility and a learner's posture. Uh, Understand that you know a lot, but we don't know everything. So have fun learning and growing. You're gonna make mistakes, fail forward, fail fast, fail. Um, you're just gonna fail. I mean, and that's just a part of the learning and the growing. So don't beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself when you make mistakes. When you make mistakes, own your mistakes. Don't hide your mistakes. Own your mistakes as a developer. You're learning, and again, take a posture of humility when you have to go before the cabinet. If you projected something that your projections didn't quite come out the way you thought they were going to come out, just kind of be okay with that. And they're your colleagues; they're hopefully supportive of you. So we want you to be courageous and really innovative in the new initiatives that you bring to the table, but recognize, as Bishop Bob Farr says, every new idea you have is not going to work. So we don't want to penalize you when things don't work, but just make sure you're honest and really taking a learner's posture as you kind of lead in this job. I think that role and that kind of posture is one that'll take you far and keep you in that appointment for a long time. And next point is I'm encouraging you to, again, learn from existing models of planting as well as be open to new contextual models that are emerging, i.e., the fresh expressions, the underground micro church models, multi sites, multi ethnic planning, and lots of other things. I was sharing with Benner recently that in my district, what we did as it relates to new churches this past year was we actually had 2 larger churches, again, adopt churches that were going to close. And so we created 2 new multi-sites this year. And again, excited about that model. That model's been around before. And I'm also coaching a church planner in the Dallas area who has a vision to create more of an underground kind of model, which is where a planter kind of oversees these micro churches that work together, and they still gather together for worship as a larger group or gathering. So anyway, so it's just a different model for church. Michael Beck's doing some great things with Fresh Expressions. And so again, there are lots of new models that are coming forward. So you got to be open, innovative, excited about the work that you're called to do. And last but not least, I'm encouraging you to trust God. I mean, Oftentimes, this role, being called into church planting, you have some experience, but again, there's just lots to learn. So have fun, trust God, know that God is with you. Path One is with you. We're other developers are with you. We have a bit, maybe some years of experience. We got some scars to prove it for the road that we've been on, but we're excited to support you as you lead the denomination forward in creating new places for new people. So, hey, again, thank you for the opportunity to share and hope you enjoy the rest of the conversations.